The Phillips Collection in Washington, D.C. is celebrating its 75th anniversary with an impressive exhibit titled Impressionists on the Seine. Not surprisingly, the focal point of this exhibit is the Luncheon of the Boating Party. It also features 6 other Impressionists and their images of the Seine.
We came up with this exhibition to put our great masterpiece, the Luncheon of the Boating Party, in a context to give people a fresh way of looking at it. Many of the artists in the exhibition have had retrospectives in the last 10 years or so, which made it challenging to bring some of these paintings here for yet another exhibition.
The exhibition includes 60 paintings from 43 different sources. Is that true?
That's true. Including the Phillips Collection, there are 43 public and private collections from around the world, as far away as Sweden, Austria, France, Holland, England, and of course a great many have come from collections in the United States because American collectors were so enthusiastic about Impressionist painting early on and acquired some truly great works that are in American museums and private collections today.
This exhibit is the first ever to explore in great detail all the facets of the Luncheon of the Boating Party, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And we thought it was about time. We studied the painting in depth and examined it through technical means, through X-ray and infrared reflectography, to see how he might have changed the composition in the course of painting it.
In your technical studies and your X-rays, you actually found that to be the case, that there was more of the bridge incorporated early on, and some of the awning was added. And tell me exactly what you found.
Well, we were very interested in studying the underlayers of paint in this painting because we know that there were no studies, no oil studies, as there were for other ambitious paintings like this by Renoir, like the Moulin de la Galette. There were no drawings, there are no preparatory works at all. So we thought, how could he have done such a complex composition without at least changing it? And sure enough, we found that he had made changes in the composition. And you can just make out in the painting itself, in the surface, some of the areas which look to be changed. But when we did these studies, we could see exactly what changed. And it's true, one of the things that he added later in the composition was this awning. He adjusted these 2 figures in the background at the rear of the balcony and brought them down. This figure to the left, who was modeled in the final version of the painting by the woman who became Renoir's wife, was originally looking out at the viewer rather than at the dog, and of course changed the painting quite significantly.
Renoir's fiancée, soon to be his wife, is fixed on a dog. Apparently the dog at the time was thought to be a symbol of fidelity, or on the other end of the spectrum, a symbol of passion.
It could suggest an intimate playmate, if you like, of the subject. And in this case, I think we certainly feel that is true, that there's tremendous suggestion of intimacy between this, the sitter and the dog, and she buries her hands in the dog's fur and suggests a kind of sensuous experience. And so we're not surprised to find that the model is the very woman that Renoir at this time is in love with. And the model, who we believe to be the model for this man on the right, Gustave Caillebotte, was a passionate sailor, and I think that he's sort of positioned in such a way where he may be looking at Aline Charigot, or he also could easily look out to the river, to the sailboats.
It occurs to me there's almost 3 paintings in one here. You have the figurative aspect of it, you have the still life on the table, which maybe some people might overlook, and then of course you have this traditional landscape from the area.
That's true, that's true.
But in the larger scale, the Luncheon of the Boating Party is the finest example of Impressionistic work of this era, isn't it?
Well, we might like to think so at the Phillips Collection. It certainly is one of the most loved paintings, I think, in all of Impressionism, and one of the best known images from this whole period. And a masterpiece in Renoir's own career, one of his most ambitious works.
In Two Sisters, there's this wonderful marriage of color and inner beauty, isn't there?
Yes, I mean, this is enormously appealing painting, one of the stars of the collection of the Art Institute of Chicago, and we're very, very fortunate to have it. Of course, Renoir did many, many portraits of children and had enormous sympathy for children, and that comes across in the sweetness of this face, with the flowers stuck all over her hat. And these two sisters have obviously just had a lovely day in the country picking flowers, and we believe that this is at the Fournes also, on another balcony, not the same one as the Luncheon of the Boating Party.
And I noticed the difference in the eyes here. Of course, in the young person, we have this wide-eyed optimism. In the adult, she's a more knowing glance.
That's right. You can see why many people wanted Renoir to paint their portraits.
The exhibition, in part, explores the relationship between Renoir and Monet, does it not?
Very much so. That's a critical relationship that we see developing in the course of the exhibition. It begins with Renoir and Monet painting together at the Grenouillère. Monet was very critical for Renoir and bringing him out to paint on the Seine and sharing with him the new style of Impressionism. The exhibition really covers a decade which is the great decade of Impressionism, when the movement first emerged as a style. This Monet is, I think, one of the stars of the exhibition for me. It's obviously the end of a late afternoon, coming home from a day of sailing, perhaps. You can just imagine that this sail is about to be dropped on this boat, and it's in Argenteuil. The sky is simply extraordinary. Most of the background of the sky is just the primed canvas. It has a kind of immediacy of touch where you can feel the vitality of the artist's brushstroke, and it's almost a kind of Zen depiction of what the sky was like, with the light behind the few scattered clouds at the end of the day. Of course, this is exactly what Impressionism was criticized for, was looking unfinished, and why their paintings were often rejected by the salon. But to us today, the painting has enormous freshness and spontaneity, and at the same time evokes, with the wonder of these reflections, the exact time of day and quality of light at this moment in time.
Manet and Morisot, who were thought to be figure painters, were also drawn to the Seine, weren't they?
Manet and Morisot, yes, they were. They both came out from Paris, although not as much. And we have fewer works by them in the exhibition. Manet is really thought of as a painter of Parisian scenes, but he did come out in the summer of 1874, and he's crucial for this exhibition because he was, of course, a great example to the Impressionists. He was considered their leader, and when he came out to the Seine, he did paint some remarkable paintings and inspired Renoir, I think, to realize that he could paint ambitious outdoor figure compositions by the river, as Manet had done.
Some of the other artists in the exhibit really helped to define this particular genre, don't they?
Yes, well, we have Sisley and Pissarro. They are also part of the group, very instrumental in the emergence of Impressionism. They chose their own kinds of subjects in painting scenes along the Seine. They were more inclined to depict workers on the Seine, women doing their laundry in the river, sand dredging, just sort of a quieter, routine life on the Seine, which of course was also very much what was happening in the 1870s.
The earthen tones reinforce the whole industrial motif here too, don't they? It's very peaceful Arcadia before us.
And that's true. We have the cows, and this is just a farm by the edge of the river in this painting, but the reflections and the quality of light in the sky and the reflections in the water, a rather overcast day, is beautifully conveyed in this painting, I think. His compositions are quite interesting. This one has a certain drama to it, the one with the sand heaps and the diagonal of the river sweeping off into the distance, whereas the horizontality of this painting on the right situates us in a more fixed way.
Caillebotte's perspective and coloration also contributed to this genre, didn't it?
Yes, well, Caillebotte is a remarkable artist who, in this exhibition, we see him both as a figure painter, a quite extraordinary figure painter, and also as a landscape painter. and painted many landscapes of the Seine, particularly sailboats. He was a passionate sailor himself, so this subject was a natural for him.
There's real knowledge of boating here, isn't there?
There is.
The oars and all the mechanics here.
Exactly. Caillebotte knew an enormous amount about boats. He had his own boats built for him. He was passionate about boating, of all kinds of boating, competed in races and so on the Seine. And it's true, everything is very clearly defined. Caillebotte was very daring in his use of foreshortening, and this is a perfect example of that. And like Manet, the great Manet boating in this exhibition, he brings the water right up and out of the frame. He sort of tilts the perspective. Are we looking down on the boat? So there's no horizon, there's nothing else going on to distract our attention from the subject of the painting.
The exhibition really does contribute to our overall understanding of this Impressionistic era in painting, doesn't it?
Yes, I think that the exhibition gives a wonderful view of the emergence of Impressionism. It begins when Impressionism begins, really. The paintings done at the Renoir often thought to mark the beginning of Impressionism in the quality of the brushstroke. They're done en plein air. They don't have the finished quality of works done for the salon. They're much more spontaneous and fresh and brilliant in their color. And the exhibition as a whole covers the decade when Impressionism emerged. It's really some of the greatest Impressionist paintings were painted during this period.
And I understand that you received a rather magnanimous grant from the Ford Motor Company.
That's right. Ford was very generous and came in early on with great enthusiasm for the project and gave us the confidence to go forward with an exhibition that is as ambitious as this one. So we're very grateful.